Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Latham Magana bringing you once again the Larry Show. If you guys can remember from last year, I did a little sports radio show here on KBCU, and I'm bringing it back again this year, and I'm super excited. Coming in with a lot more experience than I did last year, so I'm super excited. I know you guys can't see because I'm broadcasting over radio, but wearing my Bucks championship shirt. The Milwaukee Bucks are my favorite basketball team, and they were able to capture a NBA championship this last summer. That was a super exciting moment for me. I had to unfortunately watch the game while I was at work, so I was like emotionally crying in the bathroom while the Bucks were hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy. But that was a pretty big moment for myself. Super excited about that. Yeah, and so today we're just going to go ahead and get into a whole lot of NFL talk today. Of course, the NBA season ended just a few months ago, so hold on, having a little bit of technical difficulties here. Okay, there we go. I think that's a little bit better there. Okay, here we go. All right, so like I said, going to be talking a whole lot of NFL today. Sweet. All right, got the okay. All right, cool. So a lot of NFL today. I thought I would go ahead and bring you guys my predictions for the awards this season for the NFL, as well as my division winners, how I think the playoff seeding is going to go, and my Super Bowl prediction. Of course, the season did start yesterday, so we'll go ahead and go over stuff like that too. I'll talk about each individual game. The Baltimore Ravens are also my favorite football team, so we'll be doing a lot of deep dives on the Baltimore Ravens as well. Super excited for what the Ravens are going to bring this season, but we'll get into that. For starters, I thought we'd go over my predictions for the awards for the year. Starting out with Offensive Rookie of the Year, my prediction is going to go ahead and be Justin Fields for Offensive Rookie of the Year. A lot of rookies yesterday did pretty well. People like Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, a lot of people thought he was just too small to play in the NFL. Went ahead and had himself a touchdown yesterday in his opening game, played pretty well. Jamar Chase had a case of the drops, and and he had over 100 yards receiving and touchdown yesterday, so people are going to hop right back on that bandwagon for sure. Trevor Lawrence threw for 350 plus. He had 3 picks though and 3 touchdowns. Not a bad showing for Trevor Lawrence. Just made some pretty rough reads that had him a couple of interceptions there, but he's going to learn. Interesting enough, that was actually his first regular season loss in his life. He has never lost a regular season game in high school or college, which is kind of wild when you think about it. He was like 64-0 or something in regular season play in his entire life, which is pretty wild. So Trevor Lawrence doesn't like to lose, and I don't think they'll be losing for very long. But yeah, like I said, Justin Fields is going to go ahead and be my Rookie of the Year prediction. As of right now, Andy Dalton is the current starter for the Chicago Bears. They lost last night pretty bad to the Rams. Their offense just didn't get clicking very well, and oddly enough, the times that their offense did look pretty good, it was when they subbed in Justin Fields. The Bears are going to do this weird thing that some teams do when they have a young rookie quarterback, and they're just going to fluctuate the two back and forth, and for some reason just run different sets for the two, which I've never really understood completely why they do that. Like, if you obviously know the other kid's a playmaker, why don't you just put him in the game the whole time? But Justin Fields was able to scramble in the red zone for a touchdown, so he looked good in his debut. A lot of people are thinking that Andy Dalton will be the starter for long. So my prediction for Offensive Rookie of the Year is it's going to be Justin Fields once he's getting on the field consistently and he's the starter for the Bears. Moving on to Defensive Rookie of the Year, I had a couple guys I was kind of thinking about here. Odafe Oweh of the Baltimore Ravens. That might be a little bit biased, but a lot of people have him tops of their Defensive Rookie of the Year lists. Baltimore sends the most blitzes in the NFL. They have a lot of elaborate blitz schemes, and they get after the quarterback. So Odafe Oweh he's gonna strive in that Ravens offense, that Ravens defense. But my pick here is going to be Micah Parsons of the Dallas Cowboys, outside linebacker, middle linebacker. He kind of fluctuates between the two depending on run downs, pass downs. I was able to watch the Cowboys-Bucks game. He's gonna be good this year. He's gonna have some big games. Of course, in his rookie debut, he plays Tom Brady, which is not something easy to do at all. But I was watching him most of the game. He covered Gronkowski pretty well. He covered tight ends over the middle well. He was just a tad late. So for his rookie debut, he played well. He was just a little bit slow, but that's just going to take time, more reps. So I think Micah Parsons of the Dallas Cowboys would definitely be my defensive rookie of the year. Next up here, we're going to have offensive player of the year. I'm going to go ahead and go with Travis Kelce, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce dominated last night, dominated last year, and will dominate the rest of the year. Travis Kelce, second in the league last year with 1,400 plus yards, receiving as a tight end. It's just madness what the connection that him and Patrick Mahomes do have. Watching the Chiefs game last night versus the Browns, which was a pretty good game, Travis Kelce was getting whatever he wanted. It seemed like I was pretty upset about it. I was facing Travis Kelce in a fantasy league, and so every time he caught the ball, I was like, oh, great. I just knew as soon as I seen the other guy, Travis Kelce, I was like, great, I'm in for some trouble this week. And definitely was. He was dragging guys into the end zone. He had 2 touchdowns, like maybe 120 plus yards receiving yesterday. He's going to dominate this year, along with Tyreek Hill, and just that Chiefs offense is just unstoppable. But I think offensive player of the year is going to be Travis Kelce. I know he's a candidate last year, but of course Derrick Henry ran for 2,000 yards last year, so that's basically a gimme. I know we are a week into the season, and so this prediction is going to sound not as much like a prediction now because how well he played last night. But coming into I wrote all this down before the year had started. I wasn't able to do a show last week because of Labor Day. But believe it or not, my defensive player of the year choice was Chandler Jones of the Arizona Cardinals, defensive end. Last night he just went ahead and had 5 sacks in the opening game against the Tennessee Titans. So that definitely sounds like I'm on track there for him to win defensive player of the year. It was either between Chandler Jones or T.J. Watt. T.J. Watt went ahead and had himself 2 sacks last night too, so T.J. Watt is definitely probably going to be up in that conversation as well. He also signed a massive $120 million contract to become the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. So congrats to T.J. Watt. But my pick is going to go ahead and be Chandler Jones. I think people are really sleeping on this Arizona Cardinals team, and I think they really showed out yesterday. We'll get into that later. But with the addition of J.J. Watt on that defensive front, Chandler Jones is J.J. Watt's going to take some double teams, which is going to allow Chandler Jones to get free and get more one-on-ones, and that's exactly what happened yesterday, and he absolutely dominated. And if you're going to try to double Chandler Jones on one side, J.J. Watt's just going to take it the other side. So the Arizona Cardinals have something good going up front, and so I definitely think that's a pretty good prediction there for Defensive Player of the Year in Chandler Jones. For comeback player of the year, I feel like this is pretty obvious. Dak Prescott broke his ankle last year, threw for 400 plus yards on opening night on Thursday Night Football versus the Buccaneers last week. They played a really good game versus Tampa. The Cowboys did, but I think this isn't even close. Derwin James is another guy that could be in that conversation. He was out most of last year. I can't remember what with, but he was out most of last year. So he'll probably do pretty well in that comeback player of the year predictions. But I'm definitely taking Dak Prescott. Last year he was on pace for 6,700 yards passing, which is would obliterate the current record. It looks like this year is going to come out and keep slinging the football around for sure. Even though they have Zeke in the backfield, they just for some reason they can't get the running game going, and I can't understand that. They have a pretty good offensive line, and Zeke is a back. I mean, he's a good back. Even though he's declined every year since his incredible rookie year, but he's still a good back. But they just continue to pass the ball, which isn't a bad thing. They almost beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A lot of people were saying there was a offensive pass interference that should have been called late in the game, but I mean, it just happens sometimes. It's tough, but yeah, the Dak Prescott's gonna have a big year. He's gonna be comeback player of the year, I think, pretty easily. And for my MVP take, this is gonna be the bold take that a lot of people, for some reason, aren't talking about, and I can't quite understand. A couple years ago, before Aaron Rodgers won MVP last year, the 2 prior MVPs before that were sophomore quarterbacks, okay? So go back with me here to 2019. In 2019, in his second season, Patrick Mahomes wins league MVP, okay? In his second season, he comes in after not playing his rookie season, and comes in and dominates, and he wins Rookie of the Year, wins MVP, wins the Super Bowl, wins Super Bowl MVP, all that. The following year, in his second season, after a pretty good rookie year, Lamar Jackson comes in and he wins MVP in his second season, leads the Baltimore Ravens to the #1 record, 13-3, even though of course, we fell to the Titans in the divisional that year. But call me crazy, but after a record-breaking rookie year, and a lot of people have him ranked as their top 10 quarterback in their top 10 quarterback list, my pick for the 2022 NFL League MVP will be Justin Herbert of the Los Angeles Chargers. Justin Herbert broke every single rookie record imaginable last year. He got the opportunity of a lifetime last year with the Chargers when Tyrod Taylor had just the most, it's hard to explain, the most whack injury possible. Minutes before the first game for the Chargers last year, Tyrod Taylor was getting something done to his ribs, getting some sort of shot or something like that. And it was like injected wrong or something, and he was unable to perform because he was getting something done with his ribs. It's the weirdest thing ever, and he wasn't able to perform. So the very first game, Justin Herbert just got kind of thrown in literally minutes before the game because Tyrod Taylor was getting the shot or whatever right before the game. And Justin Herbert got thrown in, and he absolutely dominated last year. I mean, every single game last year was thrown for 350 plus. And I think he's going to have a pretty similar year this year. And you heard it here first on the Larry Show that my pick for 2022 MVP of the league will be Justin Herbert. With that being said, those are going to be my predictions for the awards this year for the NFL. We'll run back through that again. So Offensive Rookie of the Year will be Justin Fields. Defensive Rookie of the Year will be Micah Parsons. Offensive Player of the Year will be Travis Kelce. Defensive Player of the Year will be Chandler Jones. And Comeback Player of the Year will be Dak Prescott. And like I said, MVP of the league will be Justin Herbert. With that being said, we'll go ahead and roll right into my predictions for the division titles and the playoff seedings. If we have time, I'll go over the NFC, but I wanted to go over the AFC side of things today. I predicted every team's record, where I think they'll seed, everything like that, who's going to win the tiebreakers, everything like that. So that could take a little bit of time to talk about. So we might just do the AFC side of things today, and then next week we'll do the NFC side of things. So as far as division titles go, we're starting the AFC, work our way down. So for the AFC North, a lot of people say arguably this is the best or second best division in football. The AFC North consists of the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cleveland Browns, and the Cincinnati Bengals. The AFC North is really off for grabs. It feels like every division in the AFC, it's pretty obvious who's going to be the winner of that division. But with the AFC North, it's pretty up for grabs. Baltimore, of course, Pittsburgh was the division winner last year. They just barely won the division. Prior to that, the Ravens won it the last 2 years. With that being said, Pittsburgh was able to beat Buffalo last night, which is a pretty big win for Pittsburgh, if I'm being honest. That's definitely going to have some implications towards the end of the year as far as seedings go in the AFC. Cleveland was also able to make a ball game out of Kansas City. They had it. They had that ball game. They were up for literally the entirety of that game up until the end. The Chiefs were able to snag the win after Baker Mayfield threw a pick late, and so they sealed it. But as a Ravens fan, looking at it, if the Browns were able to beat Kansas City and the Steelers were able to beat Buffalo yesterday, that would have made me a little bit nervous as a Ravens fan to say the arguably second and third best teams in the division were able to knock off arguably the best two teams in the AFC, in the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Would have made me a little bit anxious. I still am a little bit anxious because both teams played well. Even though Cleveland didn't get the win, they played really well. Kansas City just did Kansas City things. So my prediction here for the AFC North division title will be the Baltimore Ravens. I feel pretty confident in that. Baltimore plays really good when it comes to division football. Last year, Lamar got COVID late, and so he wasn't able to play in a couple of those divisional games. We lost one to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm pretty sure, last year, and Lamar didn't play in that because he got COVID. A lot of stuff, of course, went down last year because of all the COVID stuff. So that'll be a lot better this year. It's already, fans are back in the stands, which was great yesterday. If you didn't see, fans were back full capacity yesterday, and it was pretty great. It was rattling the players, you could tell for sure, because of course they haven't had fans in over a year. So last year's road teams actually won more games than home teams last year, which was the first time that's happened since 1968 in the NFL. So definitely the fact that there was no fans last year played a factor, and then having them back yesterday definitely played a factor. It was pretty great to hear that noise level again, and it was definitely rattling. For example, the Browns, once the Chiefs kind of got back into that game, Chiefs Kingdom was absolutely roaring. It felt like I could hear it from my apartment, from all the way in Kansas City over here to Newton. It felt like I could hear it. Moving over to the AFC East, like I said, these other divisions, it just feels like it's pretty obvious up top who's going to be the division winners for these. For the AFC East, even though they struggled yesterday, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Buffalo Bills as the division champs for the AFC East. I feel like they go back-to-back here, winning last year. I watched the Bills, a good majority of the Bills-Steelers game last night, and it just didn't feel like the Bills could get anything going offensively, and I can't quite figure out why. I definitely thought the Bills were gonna run shop with the Steelers yesterday, and that was not the case whatsoever. The Steelers' defense absolutely ate up the Buffalo Bills' offense. I think Stephon Diggs didn't even have 50 yards receiving. Josh Allen did not have a great game. They did not run the ball well. Pittsburgh's defense is absolutely stout. And it's not even like, when you look at the stats as well, the Steelers did not even play well offensively. I think Ben Roethlisberger had like 150 yards rushing. Najee Harris, their first round running back that everyone was super hyped about, I think he had like 40 yards rushing. It was nothing spectacular by any means. It helps when they had a blocked field goal, because I think they ended up winning the game 16-23 or something like that. So a blocked punt. They had a blocked punt they took back for a touchdown. So it was definitely a grinded out game, and I feel like that's a lot of what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be this year. Not really that great offensively, but their defense is just so good it doesn't even matter. They're just suffocating other teams' offenses that even if they play defensive battles, they're going to win those games most of the time. So even though the Bills struggled yesterday, I still have them winning this division. I still have them being a top seed, and you'll see later I have them going pretty deep in my playoffs, as I'll have my Super Bowl prediction later as well. Next up for the AFC West, pretty obvious here. The Kansas City Chiefs are just going to run through the league like they did last year. I think the Kansas City Chiefs won't have any competition as far as the division goes. The Broncos actually played quite well last night. Teddy Bridgewater got the start over Drew Lock. He played pretty well. That young receiving core, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, all them, they played pretty well. They played the Giants last night, so not the greatest opponent, but they played pretty well. I think the Kansas City Chiefs' toughest opponent is for sure going to be the Chargers. We'll get more into that in a little bit. The AFC South, I have the division title there going to the Indianapolis Colts. The AFC South for sure is the worst division in the AFC. That, of course, consists of Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Tennessee, and Houston. Excuse me. Indianapolis played well yesterday with Carson Wentz. They lost to a good Seattle Seahawks team. Carson Wentz also just had surgery like 2 months ago and healed really quick and was able to just get right back into it, which is pretty wild. So he was definitely probably just busting off some rust and stuff. The offense, as far as passing, didn't look too well. Jonathan Taylor played pretty good. But I have the Colts winning this division. Jacksonville looked really bad yesterday. The Tennessee Titans got whopped by the Cardinals. And the Texans actually played. The Texans kind of blew me away, actually. Former Ravens quarterback Tyrod Taylor is getting the start over there since Deshaun Watson's having a lot of that off-the-field allegation issues right now. He's not playing for the Texans, but Tyrod Taylor balled yesterday, and they were able to get the win last night. So I thought for sure that the Texans were going to be one of the worst teams in football, but I still think that the Colts are going to run through that division pretty easily. So that's the AFC side of things. A little bit of an overview. We got the AFC North will be the Baltimore Ravens. The AFC East will be the Buffalo Bills. The AFC West will be the Kansas City Chiefs. And the AFC South will be the Indianapolis Colts. I'll go ahead and give the seeding for the AFC right after we run through this NFC division titles. So starting off with the NFC North, I got the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers struggled yesterday pretty bad, which kind of came as a shock to me, but at the same time it wasn't, because if you've had your ear to the NFL at all this offseason, Aaron Rodgers has had quite the epic offseason, consisting of him going to Hawaii with celebrities and being the host of Jeopardy and saying he's going to retire, saying he's not going to retire. It's been quite the offseason for Aaron Rodgers, showing up to the first day of practice in a Dunder Mifflin t-shirt and flip-flops, and definitely an interesting offseason for him. He didn't attend any camps, losing hundreds of thousands of dollars for not attending any camps, any OTAs, nothing for that. So the Packers, it showed yesterday. It definitely showed. I think Aaron Rodgers played one of the worst games of his career last night, which is interesting because he just won his MVP and kind of turned back the clock a little bit last year. But yeah, they struggled bad last night. But I think that, again, it's week-to-week basis. Like I said last year, Tampa Bay got off to a really bad start last year, but they were my prediction for the Super Bowl champions last year as well, or at least winning the NFC. So they got off to a bad start last year, and I told people, I said, wait, hold on, relax. The Buccaneers are going to be fine. Same situation here with Green Bay. They're going to be fine. They're still a really good football team. They just really struggled last week, and I think the Saints kind of came out and punched them in the mouth and played a lot better than I thought a lot of us thought they were going to play. I don't see anybody in that division really chasing them down. Minnesota struggled bad yesterday. Jared Goff, we'll get into the games later, but the Lions I don't think are going to be much of a test either. And the Chicago Bears, until they throw Justin Fields into there, aren't going to be much of a test either. Justin Fields, I think, will give that team more life once he gets installed into the lineup. As far as the NFC East goes, this is, of course, the worst league in football. All the memes come from this team. Last year, I think it was a 6-win. It might have been a 6-win Washington team made it to the playoffs last year because this division was just so bad. But this year, I think I'm going to go ahead and have the Philadelphia Eagles running away with the NFC East, I feel like, this year. I don't know why a lot of people are sleeping on Jalen Hurts, but they are. I think they thought it was a fluke last year. He came on, once he got the start over Carson Wentz, with all that off-the-field drama that's happening with Carson Wentz, once he got onto the field, I don't know if people remember this. Last year, they dismantled the Saints, and last year the Saints were, if not the best seed, they were flipping back and forth between the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed. They dismantled the Saints last year. And I think Jalen Hurts' first game, he threw for like 250 and ran for 100. And he did exactly the same thing this week. He absolutely dominated. I think he had 300 yards passing and 75 yards rushing yesterday. The Eagles, I feel like, they're the best team in this division not by far. Washington, of course, has a really great defense, and that's what's carried them into their playoff and division title last year. A lot of people say that if the Washington football team could get a quarterback, they feel like they could be a Super Bowl contender with as good as their defense is. But until they get a quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick is their starting quarterback currently. He injured his hip last night early in the game. So Taylor Heineke, who played actually quite well in the playoffs last year, he got the start last year in the playoffs. He played quite well. He played all right last night. Nothing spectacular. But I think the only other contender I could say, the Giants aren't even in the question for me. I feel like the Giants are by far and worse the team in this division. Even with the addition of Saquon Barkley back, I mean, it meant nothing. Yesterday, they got dominated by the Broncos last night. So I don't think the Giants are even going to be close to in the conversation. The only other team you could really say is up there with Philadelphia, I would say, would be of course, the Cowboys. But I don't know how many more times the Cowboys have to air it out for 400 yards passing and have Dak Prescott throw it 60 times for them to just continue to keep losing. Last year, before he broke his ankle, it was the same exact story. He was throwing 500 yards a week, throwing the ball 60, 65 yards a game, and they were still losing. they still got off to like a 1-3 start or something last year, and their one win was a miraculous comeback versus the Atlanta Falcons. So I don't know how much I trust the Dallas Cowboys. Their defense is still a little bit suspect. And until they can figure out a run game, I just don't think they can just continue to pass the ball and win. It's not like Kansas City, because Kansas City has a decent to good defense. Kansas City's defense is definitely better than the Cowboys' defense, and that's why the Chiefs are able to throw it for 500 yards a game and still win games. So for those reasons, I think Philadelphia is the best all-around team in the division. You could say that the Cowboys are the best offensive team because of how good they pass the ball. Excuse me. But I have the Philadelphia Eagles being a better all-around team. Moving on to the NFC South, I feel like this is... When I made this prediction, it felt pretty obvious, but yesterday said a little bit different. For the NFC South, you got Tampa, Carolina, New Orleans, and Atlanta. Atlanta's bad, which is unfortunate. Atlanta's my second favorite team, and they're pretty bad. So we'll keep them out of this conversation. Carolina is a lot of people's sleepers team this year. Sam Darnold has the offensive weapons now that they think Sam Darnold is going to strive over there in Carolina. The Saints are something interesting. A lot of people had the Saints wrote off. I think their over-under was like 9.5, and everyone's voting the under. As well as me. I would have 100% voted the under. If you guys remember, a year ago, they were over cap by millions. I mean millions. They had to let go of almost half their roster because they were just so far over the cap. As well as the retirement of their greatest quarterback ever, probably top 5 quarterback of all time, Drew Brees, retired a year ago. So they were like, man, who's going to be his heir apparent, like that. Like, the Saints were looking like they were not going to be a very good team. And I was on that wagon as well. I didn't think they were going to be very well. They were not going to do very well. And then when Michael Thomas was coming in with his surgery late, I definitely was like, the Saints are not going to be a very good team. But last night they dominated, which is crazy. Jameis Winston, a lot of memes going around because he got eye surgery. The last time he was a full season starting quarterback. I think he threw 35 picks or something like that. It was bad. He threw for like 5,300 yards, which put him like top 5 all time in a single season yardage-wise. But yeah, he threw like 35 picks. I remember when he was, last time he started for Tampa and looking at the stat lines, and he'd throw for like 460, 3 touchdowns and 5 picks. Like every single game was like that. It was like, geez. And yesterday, 5 touchdowns, 0 picks. Jameis Winston played quite well. The defense played a lot better than I thought they were going to. I think once Michael Thomas gets back into this lineup, in 5 weeks now, I believe he comes back week 6, either week 6 or week 8, because he's on the PUP, the physically unable to perform list, because he had that surgery real late into the season. They might have a better chance than I thought they did. I had them finishing second in the division because I thought they were better than, I had them finishing third in the division. I had Carolina, and then of course the division champs would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that that's an obvious one. Tampa Bay, the defending Super Bowl champs, they have Tom Brady on their roster. They bring back all 22 starters. It's the first time in NFL history the Tampa Bay Buccaneers brought back all 11 guys on offense, all 11 guys on defense. That is wild in the NFL to do that, especially in this day and age when everybody just wants their bag. Everybody just wants to get the biggest contract possible. They don't care if it means they stay with the team or they go to a new team. They just want the biggest bag they can get. That's pretty wild that they were able to keep all their guys. And then not to mention that you have the greatest quarterback of all time and Tom Brady leading that offense. And then, of course, the last division here is the NFC West, which is the best division in football. The AFC North follows right behind that. Every team in the NFC West won last night. Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Arizona all won last night. And when I was making my NFC predictions, as far as like playoff seeding and stuff like that, I really struggled because I could not pick out of this division, who I wanted to be the champ, Arizona last night played so well. Kyler Murray had 5 total touchdowns. And of course, like I said, that defense balled out. The Seattle Seahawks also played really well. Russell Westbrook, if you said, hey, week 1 early MVP's prediction, Russell Wilson played really well, and he would be my early week 1 MVP. And then the Los Angeles Rams dominated the Bears last night on Sunday Night Football. Not a great team. The defense did exactly what the defense does. And then Matthew Stafford, of course, made his debut. I think he threw for about 320, 330. And then you still have the San Francisco 49ers, who at one point were up 33 to 10 on the Lions. I wasn't even watching the game because it was such a blowout, and I was like, this is an easy win. They came back in that football game. I had to watch it late because I could not believe it. The final score ended up being 43-31 or something. They were down 33-10 with a quarter and a half to go, and the Lions scored back-to-back touchdowns in a minute and 30 seconds, got back-to-back 2-point conversions. Pretty wild. And then Jimmy Garoppolo hit Deebo Samuel for a first down on a third and on medium, and he fumbled, and the Lions got the ball back late, and they almost drove down the field and tied it up. It was pretty wild. Other than that, a little slip up though. San Francisco still played really well. Their defense locked up the Lions for the most part right there until the end. At the beginning of the game, Jared Goff was 8 for 19 with 120 yards passing, no touchdowns, and a pick. So they locked up the offense pretty well at the beginning of the game. And then Jared Goff went off at the end of the game. Trey Lance, also the rookie quarterback that they went up and traded up for in this last year's draft, was able to get in another one of those weird situations like Chicago where they just sub in their young quarterback for some reason. I hate when teams do this. The Ravens situation kind of made sense. A couple years ago, the Ravens were kind of doing the same thing with Lamar Jackson and Joe Flacco. It kind of made sense because Joe Flacco is a pocket passer, deep range, dead eye. And so of course, he's sitting there throwing the football around, right? When you gave Lamar Jackson the ball on offense, it's kind of the same thing they're doing with Justin Fields and Trey Lance, where Jimmy Garoppolo and Andy Dalton are pocket passers, older guys, pocket passers, and Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, all those guys, quick, young, athletic quarterbacks. And they're just bringing them in for wildcat sets, and they're just running elaborate option schemes and zone schemes, and they're just running the football. I don't understand why teams do this. If you're trusting him enough, if you're putting him on the field, then obviously you need to be playing him, I feel like. Let's be honest here. Andy Dalton is not going to get that team anywhere. But we'll go ahead and get into that later. Sorry, I'm getting on a little bit of a rant, getting off topic here. But like I said, the 49ers, they played well last night. Trey Lance got in. He scored a touchdown late out of a little wild card. Or he threw a touchdown, He threw a touchdown out of a little wildcat set. So he is going to be the future for the 49ers too. And with that being said, with all these teams playing really well, before the season started, of course, I made these predictions before yesterday. I went ahead and chose the Seattle Seahawks to win this division. And I feel like it doesn't even matter at this point. You got a 1 in 4 chance because every single team in that division could win the division. So I got a 25% shot there on that one that the Seattle Seahawks will win the division. I feel like, again, it just comes down to best overall team. I think Russell Wilson's the best quarterback in that division. They have the best offense in that division. And their defense maybe not be the best in that division. Of course, the Rams would be. But I think their overpowering offense is better than their lacking of defense. I wouldn't even say lacking of defense because when you have the 2 best defensive players in football in your division, in Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, I feel like there's not a whole lot you can do there. You have to give a little bit of leeway. All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and run back down to the NFC division title winners. So with the NFC North, I have the Green Bay Packers. The NFC East, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. The NFC South will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the NFC West will be the Seattle Seahawks, followed by the 49ers, followed by the Cardinals, followed by the Rams. Every team in that division, how about I do this? Every team in that NFC West division will have 10 plus wins. If you guys don't remember, the season got expanded to 18 games this year. So it's not 17 like it was prior. It'll be 18 games this year. So I feel pretty confident in saying that every team in the NFC West will have 10 wins. If every team finished exactly with 10 wins, every team would be 10-8. So that's, I feel like that's pretty realistic for that division. All right, so that will roll us right into the AFC seedings here. So I'm going to go ahead and run down. Of course, 7 teams make the playoffs. I already told you who my division winners were. So I went ahead and took the time the other day to go ahead and calculate overall team records for the year. So I'm going to give you my 1 through 7 for the AFC side of things, as well as what I think the predicted record will be. So let's get right into that. I have Kansas City coming in at the 1 seed with a 14-3 record. Let me pull up my notes real quick here. I have them with a 14-3 record. Those 3 losses. That's Snapchat. Okay. Excuse me, guys. I'm pulling the notes up real quick. Okay. So I have Kansas City at 14-3. The 3 losses being the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just watched the Pittsburgh Steelers lock down the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills don't have as many weapons as the Kansas City Chiefs do. But I feel like the Steelers, if any team is going to be able to hold down Kansas City, it's going to be Pittsburgh. And a lot of people are going to throw a lot of backlash at me. So that's one of their losses. Their other 2 losses, I'm going to say they're going to lose to the Chargers both times. The Chargers got much better this offseason. We'll get to that in just a few seconds. At the 2 seed, I have Baltimore. I have Baltimore at the 2 seed with a 13-4 record. Their 4 losses, I'm predicting 1 loss to the Browns. They'll lose to the Chiefs in week 2. They'll lose to the Packers, and they'll lose to Pittsburgh 1 time. So I have their total record at 13-4. Next up, I have the Buffalo Bills at the 3 seed at 12-5. A lot of people are I'm gonna get a lot of backlash for that as well. The Bills I have losing to the Washington football team. They'll lose their matchup to Kansas City. They'll fall to the Saints, fall to the Bucks, and lose that game to the Steelers. The Steelers, and sure enough, they did actually. I forgot. Like I said, I made these predictions before the season had started, so there goes one of my predicted losses there to the Steelers. And then rounding out the division winners will be the Indianapolis Colts. So Kansas City will be the 1 seed at 14-3, Baltimore the 2 seed at 13-4, Buffalo the 3 seed at 12-5, and Indianapolis the 4 seed at 11-6. Indianapolis plays a lot of big-time playoff and title contenders. I have their losses being a title-contending Seattle Seahawks, a title-contending Los Angeles Rams, a title-contending Ravens, a title-contending 49ers, a title-contending Bills, and a title-contending Buccaneers. The Colts have a tough schedule. So they're going to lose 5 games outside of the division. 6 games outside of the division. But I think they're going to dominate their division, so they're going to get the majority of their wins there from interdivision play. As far as the Browns go, I have the Browns there at the 5 seed. Give it away. I have the Browns at the 5 seed being the best wild card team at a 12-5 record, just under Baltimore. I kind of wanted to, I don't know. I have the Browns losing to the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Packers. I feel like, even with my prediction, the Browns will probably maybe finish with a 13-4. Maybe they get the game against the Chargers, maybe not. They get one of these games. I feel like they're going to have if not the same or one loss below the Ravens. Like I have the Ravens projected at 13-4, and the Browns at 12-5. There's a very good chance that the Cleveland Browns also go 13-4, and then the Ravens will just have the tiebreaker there. But the Browns are by far be the best AFC wildcard team, if not the division champs for the AFC North. At the 6th seed, this is going to be my sleeper team on the year that I still cannot. It baffles me that nobody is talking about this team. The Los Angeles Chargers will be my 6th seed at 12-5, same record as the Browns. I have the Chargers losing to the Ravens, the Eagles, the Steelers, and the Broncos both times. That AFC West division sometimes gets really interesting. Patrick Mahomes is only lost a handful of games in his couple of years in the NFL, and I think more than half of them are divisional losses. The AFC West sometimes gets a little interesting. So I say the Chargers fall to the Broncos both times, even though I said the Chargers would beat the Chiefs both times. That's just how the division play works out sometimes. So I have the Chargers. Stick with me here on this one. I know I already said that Justin Herbert was going to be the MVP of the league, and I was like, whoa, MVP of the league. The Chargers, what were the Chargers lacking in last year? A year ago, the Chargers were lacking in offensive line, and of course, had a couple of injuries on defense. What'd they do this offseason? Get better in the offensive line. Justin Herbert got bigger, stronger, faster, smarter, and they improved their defense. I don't know why nobody is talking about the Chargers. The Chargers are going to surprise a lot of people this year, I feel like. So I have them in my 6th seed. There's a chance they could even be the 5 seed. When you're in a division with the Chiefs, Justin Herbert is in a division with the best quarterback in football, and Patrick Mahomes. While you play him 2 times a year, you also learn from somebody like Patrick Mahomes. I feel like Justin Herbert in this Chargers team, have to play the best team in the AFC 2 times a year, it makes them better. Last year they were in shootouts with Kansas City a year ago, and they weren't nearly as good as they are this year. So I definitely have the Chargers at the 6 seed, 5 seed range. And as far as the 7 seed goes, I struggled with this one a little bit. We'll go ahead and wrap up here for the AFC seedings. We'll have time for the NFC seedings. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we'll have to go over those ones next week. For the 7th seed, I had a toss-up between the Steelers and the Dolphins. Like last year, if you guys remember, the Steelers got off to an 11-0 start and were quite literally the worst 11-0 team in NFL history. And I know it's crazy to say that, they were 11-0, they didn't lose. They were the worst football team ever to go 11-0. They started 11-0 and lost every single game after that, and got whopped by the Browns in the playoffs in the first round. And it was because of their lack of offense. While they picked up Najee Harris in the offseason, and they kept Juju Smith-Schuster, they re-signed him on another contract, the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger it's his time to go. I feel like if they could get a young quarterback, Dwayne Haskins played their backup quarterback, got their backup quarterback snaps this year in the preseason. He played well. And I like Dwayne Haskins. I always did. Ohio State guy. Their offense just isn't enough for me, I feel like, to make them an elite team. If they could get an elite offense with that elite defense, they would probably be second, third best team in the AFC. I have the Steelers in a discussion with the Dolphins for the 7th seed. Tua looked good yesterday. A lot of people were saying, Tua, weird situation last year where Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing one drive, Tua was playing the next drive. A lot of people saying they got backpacked by the really good special teams and defense. Brian Flores, at his first year as the Dolphins coach, had a great first season. Tua looked really good yesterday. Tua admitted earlier in this offseason he struggled with the playbook last year. He wasn't really getting it, and this year he's really grasping it a lot better. He looked good yesterday. I didn't see all of his stats, so I didn't see as far as his mechanics were going, because a lot of people were judging his mechanics the way he was throwing at the football. But the Dolphins and the Steelers, I have them at a toss-up there at the 7th seed. I can't quite decide who I want to get. But as far as AFC seeding goes, I feel like it's those top 7, 8 teams, and I don't feel like it's even close. I feel like I'll probably get, maybe not in order, but all 7 of these predictions I feel like will be correct. Last year, the Ravens division and AFC North had all 3 teams represented in the playoffs. I think the same kind of situation will happen this year. Tennessee is not going to be a good football team. I don't know. You added Julio Jones, cool. You run it for 2,000 yards in a year. I don't really know what that addition to your team really gives you. I don't think that the Titans will really be in that conversation. That's the only other outsider honorable mention team I could really think of in the AFC. The Patriots and Mac Jones looked good. Yeah, I don't know. Young quarterback. So that'll be the AFC side of things. We'll go over the NFC side next week for sure. AFC side, like I said, we'll run through it again. Kansas City at the 1 seed, 14-3 record. Baltimore at the 2 seed, 13-4 record. Buffalo at the 3 seed, 12-5 record. Indianapolis at the 4 seed, or Buffalo at the 3 seed. Indianapolis at the 4 seed, 10-6 record. Cleveland at the 5 seed, 12-5 record. And the Chargers at the 6 seed with a 12-5 record, and a toss-up at the 7 seed with the Steelers and the Dolphins. Kind of trying to figure that one out. I'll get back to it on that one for sure. Got about 13 minutes left here. We'll go ahead and go over and talk about the Ravens Monday Night Football matchup. I know a lot of you probably aren't Ravens fans. Being here in Kansas City, you guys are probably all Kansas City fans. Or in the Kansas region, you guys are all Kansas City fans. Last week, if you didn't hear, in the time span of a week, the Baltimore Ravens had 3 ACL tears and an Achilles rupture. I'll say it again. 3 ACL tears and an Achilles rupture in a matter of 1 week. J.K. Dobbins tears his ACL Saturday against Washington. Justice Hill ruptures his ACL, or ruptures his Achilles. In practice, Gus Edwards blows his ACL. In practice, non-contact injury. In the same exact practice, same exact day, our all-pro corner, Marcus Peters, blows his ACL. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That's a little bit of a blow for us. The Ravens, of course, are the best running team in football, and we lost all 3 of our running backs in 1 week. When J.K. Dobbins went down, I was upset. I was really excited to see what he was going to do this year, the second year, getting the majority of the carries, not sharing as much with Mark Ingram. And then once he went down, I was like, it's okay, I honestly, without bias, complete unbiased, I think Gus Edwards is the most underrated back in football. To run for 700-plus yards and 10 rushing touchdowns as a third option, averaging upwards over 5 yards a carry, feels like every time Gus Edwards gets the football, like I said, he got limited carries because he was sharing with Lamar and J.K. Dobbins last year. It feels like every time he gets the ball, he breaks it for a big yardage. A lot of people have actually said that aside of Derrick Henry, he's one of the most powerful backs in the league. I 100% believe that. And like I said, I think he was one of the most underrated backs in football. So the Ravens' backfield will be Tyson Williams, undrafted kid out of BYU. I had to do some research, if I'm being quite honest, because I had never heard of the kid. Bradley Bozeman, our starting center, talked about him. He said he's a kid that really wants it, really attacks it. He was injured last year for the entire year. And it's crazy. I had watched the preseason games for the Ravens, but I wasn't really paying too much attention to the names and the players and stuff like that. He actually kind of played really well in the preseason. Definitely quick, twitchy. Not a powerful guy. Definitely smaller, more speedy back. But he fights. He fights for a lot of extra yards. And that's good in that Ravens offense. It's exactly what you want. So I I trust Tyson Williams. I trust anybody in the backfield, if I'm being quite honest. Ravens have a good enough line. It doesn't really matter who's in the backfield as long as he's finding the open holes. It's just like the Cowboys a few years ago. Every year they were winning the rushing title because they just had a really good offensive line. If you have a really good offensive line, it doesn't really matter who's in the backfield, it feels like. But just because of everything that happened with all those injuries, the Ravens this last week picked up Le'Veon Bell first. We went ahead and signed Le'Veon Bell, signed him to the practice squad, then signed him to the active roster. Then we picked up Devontae Freeman, and then just a few days ago we picked up Latavius Murray, who was just released from the Saints a few days ago. I like all the pickups, honestly. If there's any year that the Ravens needed a free agent because of injuries, it was definitely this year. The free agent class for running backs is stacked with veterans. Le'Veon Bell, Devontae Freeman, Latavius Murray, Adrian Peterson's even in there, Todd Gurley. The Ravens had already been working with Todd Gurley a lot this offseason. I was really sad to see that they didn't get him, but as far as picking up these three guys who I think is really going to fit the offense well, and coming from a Ravens fan, it's going to sound weird because Le'Veon Bell torched us for a lot of my younger years growing up watching the Ravens. I think Le'Veon Bell will fit this offense the best of the three that we picked up, three guys that we went ahead and picked up. Le'Veon Bell, if you remember back to his glory days, was always talks about his patience. When the Steelers would run the football, they'd run a lot of zone blocking schemes, and they'd just hand it off to Le'Veon on the right side or hand it off to him on the left side, and they would just say, find the open hole. And he's a patient runner, and the Ravens offense is patience, timing, and zone blocking schemes because it's a bunch of read option running. So I think as far as scheme-wise, I feel like Le'Veon Bell fits the scheme best. It sounds like Latavius Murray is going to get the majority of the second string snaps behind Tyson Williams. I watch the Saints quite often. I like Alvin Kamara is my favorite running back in the league, so I watch the Saints quite often. So I've seen what Latavius Murray can do. I also seen what he did in Dallas. Not mad about it. I feel like I could do a quick search real quick to see. I'm just going to see how old Latavius Murray is. Latavius Murray, he's actually quite young. I didn't realize he was as young as he says, or as looks a lot older. So Latavius Murray is 31, and Le'Veon Bell is 29. Oh, they're both quite young still. Wow, I don't know why it felt like they had been in the league for such a long time. So both of them in their early 30s to late 20s. I actually thought they were much older than that. So yeah, I feel like Le'Veon Bell would be the better scheme fit wise for the Ravens, but I'm definitely not mad about Latavius Murray getting carries as well. So with that being said, I have the Ravens winning tonight against Oakland pretty easily. I feel like Lamar Jackson is really gonna come into his own. We got a lot better offensively this year. Rashard Bateman, I don't think is playing tomorrow. I think he's injured. But we still have Sammy Watkins. We picked up Sammy Watkins, Hollywood Brown, getting better over a year. I'm excited to see what we're going to do tonight. I was itching all day yesterday watching football and being like, oh, I just want to watch the Ravens already. I have to wait all day today. I have to practice. I have to go to class before I can watch the Ravens. But I'm excited. Super excited to watch to see what we do. Even with all these late injuries that happened to convert some pretty important guys, the Ravens have always had a next man up mentality, and guys have always stepped up really, really well. And that'll be the Monday Night Football preview for the Ravens. Last couple of minutes here, got about 5 minutes. Go ahead and I'll give you the fantasy football rundown real quick. This will be something that'll be a much bigger segment normally, but because we did such a loaded show today, I'm just going to barely be able to squeeze it in, but next week we'll for sure be able to talk about it just a little bit more. As far as my fantasy football league goes, in my competitive league, I am losing currently by 47 points, but Lamar Jackson has not played yet, and I put all of my faith into Tyson Williams. I like to draft players based upon usage. So I like to draft people like Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, because they're a part of one of the best passing offenses. I like to draft Tyson Williams, or before he got injured, it was Gus Edwards, because he's a part of the best running football team. Nick Chubb, he was also another one of the backs. He was my first back I took, part of a really good running offense, behind one of the best offensive lines in football. So I definitely think that he... I think I have to have 27 points between the two of them. Or excuse me, let's see. I'm down, but they both haven't played. I have to get 23 points between the two of them to win my fantasy football game. He doesn't have anybody left, so I just have to get 23 points apiece from both of them. I feel like Lamar can have 30 points and Tyson Williams can have 17. I feel like that's pretty realistic. I still have really high hopes that I can still win my fantasy matchup. But as far as the big fantasy performances go this weekend, Tyreek Hill, I think he had 37 points or something went off, as well as Amari Cooper. Those were the top receiving wide receiver performances. Christian McCaffrey went off. He had, I believe, 80 yards rushing and like 90 yards receiving. Pretty Christian McCaffrey type things. I was watching the Carolina game because I was excited to see what Carolina was going to bring, and he. It felt like every single play they were running, it was for Christian McCaffrey. They were just throwing it to Christian McCaffrey. They were running it to Christian McCaffrey. Throwing it to Christian McCaffrey, running it to Christian McCaffrey. So he was their top running back points for this week. Another shocker performance was Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel had 189 yards receiving. He had 31 points. He's in another fantasy football. I have a couple fantasy football teams. I like to have a couple to try out different players, so I'm not looking at the same players every week. He had 31 points from a big performance. Kyler Murray was the best scoring quarterback for the week. He had 5 total touchdowns. He had a pretty good week. Travis Kelce was the number one scoring tight end. He played very well. The Arizona defense, of course, had a whole lot of sacks, so they were the top scoring defense for this week. Tyler Bass was the number one scoring kicker, which is my kicker. Well, let's go. When I draft a kicker, I like to think of teams I think will either stall out in the red zone, so teams I think have an offense that can move it down the field but can't quite punch it in, like a Washington kind of football team. Washington football team. I ended up going with the Bills kicker because I thought that I would take a team that was going to score a lot of points, so I took Tyler Bass to be my kicker. So those are the big performances for the top positions this week. Trying to load up my team. Off the top of my head, I was going to just run you guys my team. I have one competitive league team in a money league, a competitive team for money. And so this team consists of, off the top of my head because I can't get it loaded at the moment, is Lamar Jackson at quarterback. Nick Chubb is my starting running back 1. My running back 2 is Tyson Williams. My starting wide receiver is Calvin Ridley. My number 2 is CeeDee Lamb. My starting tight end is Robert Tonyan. My defense is the Rams defense, and my kicker is Tyler Bass. I'm pretty sure that was my lineup for this last week. Robert Tonyan definitely let me down big time. 2 catches. At one point, I quite literally thought he was going to have zero catches because the Packers struggled so bad. And then Julio Jones had 5 points. I don't know why I decided to start him. I took a chance. Sometimes you just got to take a chance. In fantasy football, not a smart choice. Not a smart choice. I'm going to pick up Christian Kirk of the Arizona Cardinals and put him into my flex position. I'm thinking it'll either be him, Jalen Waddle, Sony Michel. All those guys kind of had good games off my bench. As far as Robert Tonyan goes, I'll probably keep him in to trust it. But I have Jared Cook, Chargers tight end, just in case I need to throw him in there. But I feel confident I'll win my matchup tonight, as long as Lamar and Tyson Williams do good things. And with that being said, that will be my hour here, my hour time frame. Hopefully that sounded a lot better. If any of you guys were listening to the show last year, hopefully that sounded a little bit better than last year. I'm definitely much more prepared this year. Also, we're in the studio this year. Last year we weren't able to be in the studio, so I'm super excited. about what the rest of the year is going to bring. This is something I really love to do. I love talking football, I love talking basketball, I love talking sports. Radio is what I want to get into. Commentating, sports commentating, broadcasting is what I want to get into. So I'm super excited about what the year is going to bring. We'll see what the Ravens do. Of course, every year I'll give you guys, or every week on Monday here at 8 a.m., I'll give you guys a rundown of next week. It'll be a little bit more of what it'll normally be. We'll talk about the Ravens in depth, how that game went. We'll talk about fantasy football, who you guys should start, who you guys shouldn't start, how my team does. And then also we'll talk about a game-to-game basis. I'll go over every game kind of in depth a little bit better than I did today. Today we were just kind of running down how I think the year will go in total. So I'm definitely excited for the year. Hopefully I continue to bring you guys shows, and hopefully I sound good and everything. I feel like I got a lot more experience this year, so I'm definitely ready to go. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. This is The Larry Show. You are listening to KBCU 88.1 FM, broadcasting from North Newton, Kansas, of the campus of Bethel College. Thank you, guys.